Tuesday Drive.
Well, I guess probably the same as everyone else that experienced it, but utterly terrifying. You just don't think it's something that you'll ever see. The sky just goes red and black, and you can't even see because the ash was swirling in your eyes. And I meant what I said when I said it was apocalyptic, which is actually something that was used by a heap of news outlets after I posted some videos about that at the time.
Because that's what you did. You did that a bit during those fires, didn't you? You were posting videos, and I guess in a way, was that your way of coping with the uncertainty?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when the fires hit on New Year's Eve, I was just shocked, and I just wanted to do something, anything that could help. And I can't fight fires, so I decided to put my journalism to good use and report what I was seeing, report where we're safe, and what I was hearing from the firefighters around me. And, at least with the Fires Near Me app being so out of date, I figured that I'd be able to help or at least shed some light onto what we're experiencing. Because I remember news crews couldn't actually get into where we were because the roads were blocked. But, I just wanted to do something, anything that could help, really.
And how did you find yourself sharing your story on this podcast?
I actually know Beck and Nina from when I used to write for news.com.au. So they used to be some of my commissioning editors. So when they approached me last year to ask if I wanted to share my story in their podcast, and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, thank you so much for thinking of me. Especially helps given I'm trying to pitch a book to agents and publishers. So, look at me, I can get promotions.
And I'm going to actually talk to you very soon about that book. But was it difficult for you to actually have to tell the story again, and knowing that so many people were going to be listening to it?
I mean, it was definitely nerve-wracking, and I felt a lot of pressure that I wanted my words to, I guess, be reflective of others' experiences, and that notion that we feel like we're being forgotten. So it was rather scary, but I have actually shared my story a fair few times now, including writing it in my book. And I was on an episode of the BBC's World's Deadliest Weather on the Bushfires. Wow. So I've kind of spoken about it enough now that it doesn't hurt quite so much, but I did get a bit teary in some of the emotional bits, as you do.
Now, I've messaged you before, of course, that you are a UOW graduate. How did you find yourself in Batemans Bay?
I'm from Batemans Bay.
Nice.
So, a beautiful part in the world. So I was back visiting my mum for New Year's Eve, and we got caught by the bushfires. So just really bad timing, I guess.
And were you there for the start of the bushfires?
Not like the months leading up to it, but I was there a couple of days before New Year's Eve, so I saw, the orange glow the night before, and many orange glows in the months before, but it was so eerie.
I've got to say, I was actually listening to the podcast today, and you painted the picture so vividly. And as I mentioned at the start of the interview, it was bringing back memories for me, especially when you started describing like the colour of the sky changing, the ash, the wind, the smell. That's the one that really got to me when you started talking about that smell, because I think a lot of people will remember that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a lot of lasting trauma at any of those things now that I think many of us experience. And any kind of mention or rough relation to those things just kind of brings it all back again, unfortunately.
Actually, there was another part in your podcast which I'd like to just share, and this actually had me in tears this afternoon when I was actually driving. I'm just going to play it now.
And meanwhile, Jackie and the kids, freaking out, watching the sky go dark and asking me, what's happening there, what's happening? And the kids are freaking out. And my godson, Declan, who was 14 at the time, he was rather upset, and he was crying, and I remember Jackie telling me that Declan's freaking out, the kids are crying, and I asked, do you want me to speak to them? And Jackie asked Declan, and he said, yeah. And he, just told me, I'm scared, Auntie Zoe. And for like a 14-year-old boy to admit that they're afraid and, to be to sound upset is a big thing. And I really tried hard not to cry, to be honest. I'm trying hard not to cry now, even speaking about it. But I just had to tell him that it'll be okay, that, you're in the middle of Batemans Bay, they will protect you. They won't let the whole of town burn.
Wow, Zoe, as I said, that just had me in tears this afternoon. How is your nephew going, your godson?
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's actually got a chapter in my book, so I don't know how he might be a bit nervous about that, but he says he's happy for me to talk about it, and, this is the reality that we experienced, and if it takes being emotional to get that point across and to hopefully never have this happen again, then, yeah.
And tell me about this book that you're writing, because I believe it actually features the South Coast.
Yeah, it's actually all about the South Coast. It's mainly Batemans Bay-ish, but I interviewed all sorts of people from across the coast, from Batemans Bay to Yada Yada to Cobargo to Mogo, and it features basically our stories. I was writing articles after the fires, just to have someone that actually experienced it joining the conversation. So I remember thinking, gosh, there's just so much here that you just can't capture in an article. So I knew it needed to be a book, and I interviewed various other survivors, people who had fought the fires and saved their houses, people who had lost their homes, firefighters, and people from all walks of life with all these just insane experiences. So I thought people need to know about this. So I mixed those stories with my own of reporting as a freelance journalist on the ground, and I think it's a very powerful book. I really hope I can get it into the world.
And what was it like for you interviewing these people, and also what was it like for them to talk to you, to tell their stories again?
It was, I think, really hard for both. I, made sure to tell people when I was interviewing them that your comfort is my priority, so if you need to stop, or if I ask you a question that is too much, we'll stop. But everyone that I interviewed actually said how much it helped them just to have someone that listened, someone that cared. There were many interviews where, they would be crying and I would be crying too, because while we may not have had the same experiences, we felt the same emotions, I guess. And it was actually really beautiful to be able to connect with people like that and to know that my writing is making a difference.
I mean, one of the things I heard you say in the podcast is that with everything that's happened post the bushfires, you feel that the world's moved on. What do you mean by that?
Absolutely. Honestly, I think as soon as COVID hit, everyone just forgot about the fires because there was a new thing to focus on. And yes, there have been projects since then, like TV shows and other books, but I think we still feel forgotten, at least in the sense that, there are still people that don't have homes. There are still people that are struggling immensely from the impact of the fires and then COVID for the last few years. And, there are all these supports to help people when COVID came around, but not that many for bushfire survivors, or at least not enough to actually live and rebuild and heal. So I've heard a lot of people that feel like we've been forgotten, and I wanted that to be heard.
And is the book finished?
It is close to being finished.
Wonderful.
It's 3/4 or so done. So I'm pitching to some literary agents at the moment, and then some publishers, and hoping that I can work with all of them to, I guess, take it to the next level and help make sure people hear these stories.
And I've got to ask, how are you feeling 2 years on, Zoe?
I mean, it does still impact me a lot. I think, like many people, I have a lot of PTSD responses to things, any kind of smoke, siren, helicopter, plane. And anything like that kind of transports me straight back into it. I think the more time passes, the more I get kind of anxious about it, because I'm like, oh, time's passing. I should be better, or I should have gotten these stories out in the world by now. And so that is quite stressful, but I am at least hopeful that people care.
This is Tuesday Drive